Get out of here now. You're not my real father. The words exploded through the marble-floored mansion like shattered glass, each syllable designed to wound. Jessica Montenegro, she'd already changed her last name, stood in the doorway of her Beverly Hills home, her manicured finger pointing toward the street like a weapon. At 28, she was everything money could buy. Designer clothes, perfect teeth, a law degree from Harvard. But standing there, screaming at the man who raised her, she looked like nothing more than a spoiled child throwing the tantrum of her life. Marcus Williams, 62, clutched his worn leather suitcase with hands that had worked 3 jobs to put her through college. The same hands that had braided her hair for school pictures, signed permission slips, and applauded at every graduation. Those hands were shaking now. Not from fear, but from a rage so deep it threatened to consume everything in its path. You were just a favor my parents did out of pity, Jessica continued, her voice growing shriller with each word. A charity case they felt sorry for. The irony was so bitter Marcus could taste it. 23 years ago, when Jessica's biological parents, the wealthy Hamilton family, died in that horrific car crash on Pacific Coast Highway, she was just a terrified 5-year-old. Marcus had been their private driver for only 6 months, but when the lawyers started making calls looking for anyone to take responsibility for the orphaned child, the wealthy relatives and close family friends all had the same response: "We're just not in a position to take on that kind of responsibility right now." But Marcus was. "Your biological parents left you in my care when they were barely adults themselves, Jessica," Marcus said, his voice carrying a calmness that surprised even him. It was as if he'd been preparing for this moment for years, storing up strength for the inevitable betrayal. "I raised you as my own daughter." "Exactly." Jessica's perfectly styled blonde hair whipped around her face as she spun toward him. "You raised me, you did your job as a babysitter. And now you can leave." From his position in the Italian leather armchair, Bradley Montenegro watched the scene unfold with barely concealed satisfaction. At 35, he was everything Jessica thought she wanted. Old money, connections, and a trust fund that meant he'd never worked a real day in his life. His perfectly manicured nails drummed against the armrest as he savored every cruel word his fiancée hurled at the man who had sacrificed everything for her. "Finally. Love," Bradley murmured, not even bothering to look at Marcus. "It's about time. You deserve better than, well, this." The word "this" hung in the air like a slur, and Marcus felt something shift inside his chest. In the 2 years since Jessica had started dating Bradley, everything had changed. The Sunday dinners stopped, the phone calls became shorter, then stopped altogether, and the introductions to her new friends, those never included Marcus at all. "I have a successful law practice, a beautiful home, and a fiancé from one of the most respected families in California," Jessica continued, her voice taking on the practiced tone she used in courtrooms. "I don't need you embarrassing me anymore." Marcus set down his suitcase and pulled out his phone. With deliberate movements, he scrolled to his contacts and pressed a number he knew by heart. "What are you doing?" Jessica demanded. "Calling Robert Hamilton," Marcus said quietly. "Your father's younger brother. The one who said he was too busy traveling to take you in." Jessica's face went pale. "You wouldn't dare. I think it's time someone told you the truth about that night 23 years ago." The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Marcus? My God, I haven't heard from you." "Robert, I need you to tell Jessica something she deserves to know," Marcus interrupted, putting the phone on speaker. "About the night her parents died." There was a long pause. Jessica's eyes darted between Marcus and Bradley, her confidence wavering for the first time all evening. "Marcus, please," Robert's voice cracked through the speaker. "We agreed we'd never—" "The agreement's off," Marcus said firmly. "Tell her what really happened that night. Tell her why you and every other relative refused to take her in." Another silence stretched across the connection, broken only by Robert's heavy breathing. Finally, he spoke. "Jessica, honey, there's something you need to understand about your parents' death. It wasn't just a car accident." Jessica sank onto the couch, her face draining of color. Bradley leaned forward, his casual indifference replaced by sharp attention. "Your father, your biological father, Thomas, he'd been gambling. Heavy gambling. By the time he died, he owed some very dangerous people a lot of money. The kind of people who don't forget debts, even when someone dies. That's impossible, Jessica whispered. My parents were wealthy. They left me a trust fund. There was no trust fund. Jessica. Robert's voice was barely audible now. Everything was gone. The house, the cars, the bank accounts. And the people your father owed money to made it very clear that anyone who took you in would become their problem too. Marcus watched Jessica's world crumble in real time. The foundation of everything she believed about herself, about her identity, about her worth, was built on a lie she'd constructed to protect herself from an unbearable truth. Every relative you thought abandoned you out of selfishness was actually protecting themselves from men who break kneecaps for a living. Robert continued. Except Marcus. He knew the risks, and he took you in anyway. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Because tomorrow, at the same time, we'll bring you another story of Black people leading the way that you won't want to miss. But the house, Jessica stammered, looking around at the marble floors and crystal chandeliers. The money for school, for everything. That was all Marcus, Robert said. Every penny. Marcus ended the call and looked at Jessica, who sat frozen on the couch like a statue of her former self. Bradley had gone completely silent, his smug expression replaced by something that looked almost like panic. I worked 3 jobs for 18 years, Marcus said quietly. Security guard at night, janitor in the morning, and driver during the day. I slept on that couch, so you could have the master bedroom. I ate peanut butter sandwiches for dinner so you could have piano lessons and dance classes and summer camps with your friends. I don't understand. Jessica's voice was barely a whisper now. If you gave me everything, where did all this come from? She gestured weakly at the opulent surroundings. That's an interesting question, Marcus said, reaching into his jacket pocket. Because I've been wondering the same thing. He pulled out a manila envelope, thick with documents. You see, Jessica, when you graduated law school and started making good money, I decided it was time to learn how to use a computer. Amazing what you can find online these days. Bradley suddenly stood up, his face flushed. Jessica, maybe we should discuss this privately. Sit down, Bradley. Marcus's voice carried an authority that surprised everyone in the room, including himself. I think you'll want to hear this too. He opened the envelope and pulled out the first document. Did you know that your fiancé's construction company has been awarded 17 city contracts in the past 2 years, all of them mysteriously undervalued, then subject to massive cost overruns that the city just happened to approve without question? Jessica's eyes darted between Marcus and Bradley. Bradley, what is he talking about? And isn't it interesting, Marcus continued, that all 17 of those contracts were approved by a specific city planning committee? A committee that includes City Attorney Sarah Morrison, County Supervisor David Chen, and District Attorney Rebecca Martinez? The color drained from Jessica's face. Those are all my clients. Funny how that works, Marcus said, his voice growing colder. Your law firm represents the very people who've been approving your fiancé's suspiciously profitable contracts. Almost like there's some kind of arrangement. Bradley was backing toward the door now, his patrician composure completely shattered. Jessica, I think I should go. Oh, you're not going anywhere, Marcus said, and something in his tone made Bradley freeze. Because we haven't gotten to the best part yet. Marcus pulled out another document, this one with an official seal. See, when I found all those connections between your clients and Bradley's contracts, I got curious about something else. If you're making so much money from your law practice, why have you been receiving large cash deposits every month for the past 2 years? Jessica's hands were shaking now. I don't know what you're talking about. Bank records don't lie, sweetheart, Marcus said, the endearment carrying more pain than affection. $50,000, deposited in cash, every single month, right into your personal account. Money that never gets reported to the IRS. Money that doesn't show up on any client billing records. He spread the bank statements across the coffee table like a dealer laying out cards. At first I thought maybe you were just good at your job. Maybe you had some wealthy clients paying premium fees. But then I noticed something interesting about the timing. Bradley had gone completely white, beads of sweat forming on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Every deposit happens exactly 3 days after Bradley's company submits a billing invoice to the city. Every single one, 24 times over 2 years, like clockwork. Jessica stared at the documents, her legal training warring with her desperation to deny what was right in front of her. That's just a coincidence. Is it? Marcus pulled out a photograph. Because this is you and Bradley having dinner at Mastro's with City Attorney Sarah Morrison and her husband. The receipt shows you paid for a $2,000 meal. And look at the date. The same night the city approved Bradley's biggest contract yet. The photograph showed all four of them laughing around a table, raising champagne glasses in what looked like a celebration. Jessica remembered that night. She'd thought they were celebrating her engagement. "You've been taking bribes, Jessica," Marcus said, his voice breaking slightly. "You've been using your position as a prosecutor to help your fiancé steal millions from the city." "It's not stealing," Jessica exploded, her legal mind finally engaging. "Those are legitimate contracts. The work gets done at 3 times the fair market value," Marcus replied. "While schools go without textbooks and fire stations can't afford new equipment, you've been stealing from every taxpayer in this city." Bradley finally found his voice. "Jessica, we need to call my lawyer." "Your lawyer?" Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Bradley, your lawyer is sitting right there." He pointed at Jessica, "and she's about to need a lawyer of her own." Jessica stood up abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked the city she'd been systematically defrauding. "You don't understand," she said, her voice taking on a desperate edge. "I worked so hard to get here. I built this life from nothing." "You built it from nothing?" Marcus's voice was incredulous. "Jessica, I gave you everything. I sacrificed my entire life so you could have opportunities I never dreamed of. And this is what you did with them. You gave me a life of shame." Jessica whirled around, tears streaming down her face, but her voice still venomous. "Do you know what it was like, growing up as the poor black man's charity case? Do you know how many doors were closed to me because of where I came from? So you decided to kick down those doors by becoming a criminal. I decided to take what was owed to me." Jessica screamed. "I was supposed to inherit millions. I was supposed to be somebody important. Instead, I got stuck with," she gestured at Marcus with disgust. "With you." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Marcus felt something die inside his chest, some last vestige of hope that the little girl he'd raised was still there somewhere beneath the corruption and greed. "I see," he said quietly. "So all of this, the house, the clothes, the lifestyle, it's just you taking what you think you deserve? It's me taking what I earned," Jessica said, but her voice was less certain now. Marcus nodded slowly and pulled out his phone again. "In that case, I think you'll want to see this." He showed her the screen, which displayed an email draft. The recipient line read, "FBI Financial Crimes Division, Los Angeles Field Office. I've been documenting everything for 6 months," Marcus said. "Every deposit, every contract, every suspicious meeting. I even managed to get some recordings." Bradley bolted for the door, but Marcus's voice stopped him cold. "The FBI already has copies of everything, Bradley. Running will just make it worse." Jessica sank back onto the couch, her face in her hands. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this to me?" "Because 23 years ago I made a promise to your dying mother," Marcus said, his voice heavy with grief. "I promised I'd raise you to be a good person. I failed." Marcus walked to his suitcase and pulled out one more document. This one aged and yellowed. Jessica looked up as he placed it on the coffee table beside the bank statements and photographs. "Your mother's final letter," he said. "She wrote it in the hospital the night she died, knowing she wouldn't survive her injuries." Jessica's hands trembled as she picked up the handwritten pages. Her mother's elegant script was shaky but still legible. "Marcus, if you're reading this, then Thomas and I are gone, and Jessica needs someone to love her. I know we've only known you a short time, but you're the only person who looked at our daughter and saw potential instead of burden. Thomas made terrible mistakes with money, and we're leaving Jessica with nothing but debt and danger. Everyone we thought would help has already made their excuses. Everyone except you. I'm not asking you to adopt her out of pity. I'm asking because I see something in you that I hope Jessica will see too someday. The kind of quiet strength that doesn't need recognition or reward. The kind of love that gives without keeping score. Please teach her to be better than we were. Teach her that real wealth isn't what you have, but what you give. And if she ever forgets where she came from, Remind her that the best people in this world are the ones who lift others up, not tear them down. All my love and gratitude, Catherine Hamilton. Jessica's tears were falling freely now, smearing the ink her mother had written with dying hands. She knew. Jessica whispered, "She knew you would sacrifice everything for me. She also knew you might forget," Marcus said gently. "That's why she asked me to keep this letter until you needed to remember who you were supposed to become." Bradley had crept back into the room during the reading. His face, a mask of calculation. "Look, maybe we can work something out," he said. "The contracts are legitimate. The work gets done. Maybe we just adjust the payment structure going forward." Both Marcus and Jessica turned to look at him with identical expressions of disgust. "Get out," Jessica said quietly. "Jessica, be reasonable." "Gee out," he screamed. And this time, there was no mistaking the finality in her voice. After Bradley fled, the house fell silent, except for Jessica's quiet sobs. Marcus sat down beside her on the couch, close enough to offer comfort, but far enough to respect the chasm that had opened between them. "What happens now?" Jessica asked. "Now you have a choice," Marcus said. "You can keep fighting this, hire expensive lawyers, maybe avoid prison, but lose everything else. Or you can do what your mother hoped you'd do. You can choose to be better." 3 weeks later, Jessica sat in a federal courtroom wearing a simple black dress instead of designer clothes. Her hair was pulled back in a modest ponytail, and her hands were folded in her lap as she listened to the judge accept her guilty plea. She'd cooperated fully with the FBI, providing evidence that brought down not just Bradley's construction company, but an entire network of corrupt city officials. The house was gone, seized as proceeds of criminal activity. The law license was suspended, probably permanently. But for the first time in years, Jessica could look at herself in the mirror without feeling sick. Marcus sat in the gallery behind her, wearing the same suit he'd worn to her law school graduation. When the judge announced her sentence, 2 years in minimum security prison, followed by 5 years of community service, he was the only person in the courtroom who didn't look surprised. After the hearing, they had 15 minutes together before Jessica had to report to the federal marshals. "I have something for you," Marcus said, pulling out an envelope. "Your mother wanted you to have this when you were ready." Inside was a cashier's check for $5 million. Jessica stared at the numbers, unable to process what she was seeing. "I don't understand. Your parents did leave you an inheritance," Marcus explained. "But it wasn't money. It was a life insurance policy, with me as the trustee. I was supposed to give it to you when you turned 25, but you were so focused on making your own way that I decided to wait." $5 million, Jessica whispered. "All this time, you were working 3 jobs and sleeping on the couch, and you had $5 million. "I had $5 million that belonged to you," Marcus corrected. "But after watching what money did to your father, and seeing what the pursuit of money was doing to you, I decided you could only have it when you learned what was truly valuable." Jessica looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "And you think prison taught me that?" "I think losing everything and choosing to do the right thing anyway taught you that," Marcus said. "Your mother was right. Real wealth isn't what you have, it's what you give." He stood up as the federal marshals approached. "The money will be waiting for you when you get out. Use it to help people, Jessica. Use it to become the person your mother dreamed you could be." As they led her away, Jessica called over her shoulder, "Marcus, will you visit me?" He smiled for the first time in months. "Every Sunday, daughter. Every Sunday." 2 years later, Jessica emerged from prison to find Marcus waiting in the parking lot with a small suitcase, not to leave but to help her start over. Together, they used her inheritance to establish the Catherine Hamilton Foundation, providing legal aid to families threatened by predatory lenders and loan sharks. And every Sunday, they had dinner together in Marcus's small apartment, eating simple meals and talking about the future. A future built not on what they could take, but on what they could give. The ungrateful daughter had finally learned gratitude. But more importantly, she'd learned that the greatest inheritance isn't money. It's the love of someone willing to sacrifice everything, ask for nothing in return, and still be there when you finally find your way home.